thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is episode 32 of Coaching Connections. Now, before we get this episode started, I just wanted to give a big shout out to my guy, Mike Martinez at Pride Printing, that does all the logos and artwork that you see throughout everything. He is phenomenal. Him and his wife do a great job. If you need any work done, they really are truly gifted at what they do. On today's episode, we have Coach Marvin Walker and Coach Mike Herrera, and these two guys are currently assistant coaches. They have a lot of experience, a lot of great information and insight. I had a blast talking to these two coaches. I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as I did. This is episode 32, Herrera and Walker. Let's get after it. What's going on, Coach?
What's up? Hey, man, I'm on the road headed to Dallas, so it might be a lot of road grind. Hopefully it ain't too bad.
No, it's good. You sound good right now. Who's driving? Your son?
Yeah.
Good luck with that one, right?
Yeah.
What's up, man?
So, Coach, where's the? Did you test it out already?
Dude, I'm so busy. I haven't even had a chance to take it out of the box again. Yeah, there's no quiet place in my house, man, with these two kids. So it's like the only place I can go is outside on the back patio.
Is it hot? It looks peaceful.
Dude, it's ask me in about 45 minutes and my legs would be sweating and sticking to the chairs. But it's not too bad, man. It's not too bad.
Yeah. How we doing,
All
Coach?
right, Coach. I think I'm good.
Got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Did your boy have to set it up for you? Did your son have to do it, or did you figure it out?
He guided me through. I got the big headphones, the big Bose headphones. I don't want to be in the podcast with these big old 1985 headphones on, and people be making fun of my headphones, so showing my age.
Nobody's gonna judge you, Coach, because of your headphones.
Yeah, thank you.
So first, I just want to say thank you guys for taking time out of your day. Like I said, I know you guys are very busy, so the fact that you're taking time out to hang out and talk hoops, talk life, and everything else in between, I really do appreciate your time.
You bet. Thank you,
Thanks
man.
for having us.
Awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about COVID. How has your life changed, during this whole pandemic? What have you been doing to stay busy, stay active? And I guess what have we been doing in preparation for all of the unknown that lays ahead of us as far as the school year and basketball season? Either one of you.
First, man?
Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Well, I mean, basically this whole COVID, man, and I've kind of heard a common answer amongst a lot of your guests is, family, number one. Being a basketball coach, and it doesn't present itself a lot to be able to spend time with family. So I'm going to have to say ditto on what a lot of coaches have talked about. It's allowed me to spend more time with my family and my kids and be home. And like a lot of coaches have said too, man, my landscaping hasn't looked this good in a long time. But generally speaking, man, I've been able to spend a lot of time reading books, studying, and whether it's about race, with the racial climate in today's society, I'm trying to brush up on my racial education. I've been active in a lot of groups through social media and Facebook to have conversations about this. I even started my own racial inequality group on campus over at Steele High School to begin conversations on how we can better empower our kids and our students and our athletes. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
Marv?
I would agree with that. Unfortunately, due to my wife's job, she's not a nurse or a doctor, but she's still considered an essential worker. So she's still been working a lot. So me and my son, we've always spent a lot of time together, but even more so this summer, and being creative. This is his going into his senior year. So we was hoping for a big summer, on the circuit, give him opportunity to hopefully play at the next level. So we just been, weight rooming in the garage and doing some ball handling. I got access to a gym around the corner from me that, I've been able to take him there quite a bit this summer and work out. And then like Coach said, reading, I actually started a book club in Alamo Heights with, it turned out to be a bunch of about 100 teachers in Alamo Heights, based around the Black Lives Matter, everything that's going on in the world right now. So just trying to help educate, stay educated, get educated, and use that to hopefully have more of an impact in the classroom and on the court.
Marvin, what book did you do a book study on?
We started with Stamped. So the first book we did was Stamped. There's two versions of it. One of them is more of an adult version. And then there's one that's designed for the classroom. It's designed to use with students for ages 6th grade through 12th grade. So we decided, I read that one. Some people read the adult version, if you will. They both deliver the same message in a different way, based on the ears that were listening or watching or reading. So we started with that one, and now we're in week number 2 of White Fragility. And that was kind of the second book that, the group voted on. So we're doing that one. And we're just going to keep kind of going and continuing to educate. And then on the side, me and some other teachers have been doing some things as far as the district, as far as, talking about things that maybe we can do within our high school or within the community to kind of make it a little bit more inclusive.
That's awesome, man. I commend you on that. And it sounds like you and I are kind of doing the same thing. I'm actually reading we're finishing the book White Fragility with a group of men across the country. And, obviously using that as my resource when I'm talking with the other teachers on campus. Sounds like you and I are doing something very similar, man. So we might have to talk after this and see how that goes, man. But I commend you for doing that on your campus, man. That's awesome.
Same for you, man. It's an awesome way to get a conversation going and keep a conversation instead of just sitting around retweeting and commenting on other posts and not really doing anything. I felt like I needed to do something, and this just happened, through a suggestion of one of my peers. We kind of came together and started this book club, and he's doing a lot of other things. So I've been doing a lot of the leg work, but it's 4 of us, and all 4 of us are definitely involved in some way or another within the community of just trying to educate and make some changes.
What of well, let me commend the both of you. I was going to say that as well. I mean, like you said, Mike, you guys are kind of doing something very similar. But the fact that you're using your influence to help educate, I think that's powerful, and I think it's important, and so I want to commend the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your childhood. Where did you guys grow up? What was your childhood like? Did you have any powerful influences in your life as a young man?
My childhood wasn't storybook, single mom, single parent household, just my mom, pretty much born and raised in poverty, spent probably, my middle school through high school years living in the projects. Sports has always been like my refuge. My mom has always been a great supporter of me playing those sports as much as she could. Not much financial support there because she just wasn't capable, but there was plenty of people in the community that helped. For me, it was the boys club. I went to the boys club from the age of 6. So just kind of growing up, always competing, whether it be in the game room or on the basketball court or on the football field or softball or whatever you roll out, I was trying to go play. So that kind of kept me, out of trouble. And then, after high school and going into college, I didn't know what I wanted to do as far as a career. And I spoke with my advisor, and she asked me, what do you like to do? And I said, I love kids and I love sports. So that's kind of how I got into coaching. But, I know there's a lot of kids who had it worse than me, because the one thing I did have that maybe a lot of kids don't have that came from similar situations is I had a mom who loved me, supported me, and made things happen that I look back at, and I don't know how she did it, but I'm appreciative of it. And I was definitely fortunate to be where I'm at now.
Yeah, for me, kind of similar story. I grew up in San Antonio. on the northeast side of town. A single parent family. Mother raised 5 kids. You know, I would say that we were a poor family. But amazingly, my mother never let us know that. Through her strength and through her work ethic, growing up as a kid, you're not aware of, you know, financial insecurities or stabilities. You just know what your lifestyle is. You know that you've got, you know, dinner to eat, you know, and you better eat it when it's hot because the other people are going to eat the food. So maybe that's why I eat so fast now in my adult life. But you know, growing up as a kid, it's always hard for us to appreciate the things that our parents do for us because we're just unaware and we're not mature enough to understand those things. But you know, I can remember things like Salvation Army bringing us clothes and bringing us food, and we were very fortunate to have academics at a private school. I went to St. Pius. They're not too far from Alamo Heights. Went there kindergarten through 8th grade, and then from there went to public school and went to MacArthur High School to get that public education experience, which was very shocking growing up from a private school, discipline and nuns that'll slap your wrist with the rulers, and you know, it was kind of shocking to go to public school. But went to public school, went to MacArthur for 4 years, then went off to the University of Tulsa for 4 years, and then finished up my master's at Texas Tech. For 2 years, but that's kind of the educational road, if you will, my family upbringing. But sports was something that was always a part of me as a kid. That was kind of like your outlet. Dealing with a parent's divorce was never easy. I was kind of quiet. I was kind of angry, but that was a place where I just got to release everything, and not anger, but just release, just be a kid and be free and not think about things. Fell in love with the game of basketball at an early age, probably, you know, 1st grade, playing, you know, CYO kind of stuff at the church. But then around 4th grade, I remember running AAU track and field and getting involved with that early in cross country. And I can remember probably around that same time, going down to the San Antonio Zoo and doing those fun runs on Wednesday nights and competing. And, you know, and I think about it now, you know, you talk about people that influence your life. You know, my family has always had a part in my story in terms of putting me in front of influential men. Never knew it at the time, but, you know, a guy by the name of Coach Nolan, who would take me to go do these fun runs in cross country because he used to run and do the New York marathons and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know it at the time, but I'm sure my mom put me in front of him, you know, whether it was soccer, basketball, cross country, track, sports were always a part of my life. And growing up as a kid, you know, I used to go to like these YMCA camps, and there would be probably at that time, you know, young teenage guys that were probably in high school, maybe, right? That would be called up to go work a camp with, you know, inner city youth or whatnot. And I would always look at those guys and I'd be like, man, like, how cool is it that this guy, you know, is working in this capacity? Like, I want to be like one of those guys. Or maybe it was church camp, you know, and I'd go to church camp and then you'd go back down to your bunker or whatever, right? You go into your little cabin and you'd have another youth leader, you know, that was probably a teenager or, you know, 18, 19, 20 years old. And I kind of always looked up to those kind of people that stood for something and were influential in holding a group. And so maybe that had some kind of a small play into getting into the field of coaching, but that's kind of where I grew up.
Man, Coach, I don't know if you like looked up our history, me and Mike, but it seemed like we kind of live parallel lives as far as how we got where we are. I guess the biggest difference, it was just me. I have brothers and sisters, but my mom didn't raise them, you know, for other reasons or whatever. But it sounded like for me it was the boys club, for you it was the YMCA, And I had a lot of those same thoughts growing up, seeing counselors at the boys club running camps or going to boys club camp and seeing those guys. And I became one of those guys at 15, where I was, able to work camps and make a little money and buy my own clothes and stuff. But, one of the things you said too that stood out was that when you're going through it, you don't know how rough it is because that's just what you know. And your friends and everybody around you are going through the same thing. So that's just your life. You don't know that there's for lack of a better term, a better way financially. You just know when I wake up in the morning, there's something to eat on the table. When I come home for lunch, there's something. I got clothes on my back. But when you're going through it, you just go through it. But when you have kids and you get older and you think about some of the, things you deal with your kids, and we're in a financially stable place, and to think my mom had to deal with me in that same way without financial stability. And how was she able to do that? And it's amazing to kind of think back on some of the things that you went through and how much you appreciate it now. Like you said, you couldn't appreciate it when you were going through it.
Like you said, thinking back to an example, I remember this clear as day for some reason. We were in the same boat, grew up, there's 5 kids, both my parents, but only my dad worked. My mom stayed home with the kids and didn't have a lot of money, when I was a child, but in school, I think I was a freshman, and one of my friends, he had just moved from the other side of town, more affluent area, and he came over to the house, and we gotten pretty close. And hold on a second. And all right, my wife's at work right now, so it's just the kids.
All right.
Anyway, and so he was from a more affluent neighborhood, more affluent school, lived a totally different life, but his dad was a principal in our district, so he came to school with him. And so he'd come over to the house, and the first time he was at the house, he kind of just went and grabbed some food and started eating. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing? You can't just do that." He's like, "But it's just," I said, "Yeah, but that stuff has to last. Like,
Yep.
it's got to last us the whole week until my dad gets paid again." And he's like, well, here's $20. I said, "I don't want your money. Just stop eating our food, and but something small like that, like just that little lifestyle to where he came from a household where he didn't have to worry about that. If I want to eat this food, I go eat the food, and we just buy some more. And so, but I didn't know there's another way to live, right? Until being around people like that, which is not a bad thing. It's just opened my eyes a little bit. And to go back to what you said, Marv, no, I didn't research you guys' history. It's just funny how life works that way. And the parallel lives is just, I guess you guys were meant to be on the same episode.
There you go.
Yep.
Let's talk about your coaching journeys. Where'd you start up until this point? What are some of your goals moving forward?
For me, and that's Marcus, we've talked about that earlier, man. Listening to all these episodes, and I've listened to every single one of them, there's a common theme, that the journey of a lot of these coaches that you've interviewed have had a significant destiny, if you will, right? Like they had probably 5-6 different roles from middle school to high school to an assistant head coach to a head coach at maybe a smaller classification, maybe back to an assistant coach and then head coach, right? And that's kind of where they've been for the last 15, 20 years. My experience is not parallel to them at all. My coaching experience started right after college when I finished my master's at Texas Tech, and started coaching AAU for about 2 or 3 years. And while I was doing that, I was a volunteer coach over at Steele High School. Steele High School opened up 16 years ago, which is crazy to say, man. Coach Hubbard and I got there year 2. They didn't have a JV team, and they didn't have a freshman team, so there was just the coach there at the time. But Lonnie and I have been there for the last 15 years. And I volunteered my first year, maybe 2 years max, and got moved into a freshman role. Was the head freshman coach for, I guess, 5 years. And then the head coach at the time moved on to different things. And so Lonnie moved up as the head coach, and then I moved up as the assistant coach. And man, I'm going on year 15 at Steele High School. I've never had any other experience. And it's been a ride. I mean, it's been amazing. You know, I mean, with 3 state Final Fours in 9 years, 2013, 16, and 19, it's I'm very blessed and very fortunate to be where I'm at. You know, and although I don't have the storyline of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 high schools, I think this one experience that I've had at Steele has been one heck of a ride. You know, and it's something that I can definitely cherish. And going back to where I went to high school, MacArthur, you know, like you think about how many programs have not made the state tournament, and to say that we've been there 3 times as an assistant coach, to me, man, I couldn't have asked for anything better. So I embrace my story. I embrace the fact that I've only been at one school, but I mean, absolutely, I desire and aspire to be a head coach and take what Lonnie's taught me and what the program has taught me and take it on and become a head coach and start that journey. And hopefully, God willing, that will happen soon.
You know, that to kind of elaborate on what you're saying, first, let me just say Lonnie's an outstanding person. And so you've had a heck of a mentor this last 15 years or so. You know, but the one thing I love about what I've been doing with these coaches and talking to them is everybody's journey looks different. You know, it's a little different here. Maybe it's 2 schools, maybe it's 5 schools, or maybe it's just one, you know, but everybody's got their own story. And that's what makes it special, right? You know, everybody's got their own story to tell. And so,
Yep.
Marv, what's yours?
Mine is probably a total contrast to his. I started coaching while I was still at UTSA. I got Neville Shedd was a mentor of mine, still a mentor. And I was at UTSA, and he got a phone call from TMI asking, hey, you got a guy that can come over and help us out. We got a coach that's moving into a position. And the coach had never coached before. He had refereed and things like that. And he was doing the families a favor because they wanted a familiar face. So I went over there part-time, you know, and I got to, you know, do a lot over there because although I didn't have any experience coaching per se, I had a vast amount of experience just playing the game or being around the game. So I got a chance to really do a lot there. Was there 1 year, was supposed to go to Antonian. From there, went to Antonian actually with Coach Bruce back in the day. And but that didn't really work out because I was going to school. I had a full-time job, and his schedule was a little bit more complex because he had like 7 teams. So I stopped coaching there. Probably the next year I left, packed up and left and went to grad school in Alabama. Went to United States Sports Academy and got my master's degree. Got my bachelor's degree from UTSA, master's degree from the United States Sports Academy. While I was there, I did an internship with the men's program at the University of South Alabama under Bob Wedlick. Rick Pelfrey took over while I was still there, but I didn't really get to work with him a lot. Then I moved to Florida, and that's where I effectively started my public school coaching. Assistant middle school football coach. Basketball coach found out about me at the high school and had me come up and help him at the high school. The next year, got moved up to the high school, teaching and coaching. Was there a year. Had my son. We decided to move back to Texas. And that's when I got on the girls' side. And that was just because that was the only thing available when I got in town. Just so happened I went to the program at the time that was ranked number 1 in the state, which was Taft High School, ran by Pam Owens, may she rest in peace. But she became like my ace. Like a lot of the stuff I learned about how to be a professional, how to go about your business, a lot of that came from her. And just having that on my resume for 1 year because she left and went to Tennessee with Pat Summitt. So having that on my resume for 1 year, I ended up getting the head coaching job at St. Mary's Hall. on the girls' side, and I was there as the head coach for 5 years. As you hear my story, I've been a lot of places. That by far was probably the best experience I had, because there was no expectations. So I was able those 5 years, I was able to figure out who I was as a coach. Philosophically, just my sideline decorum, like everything. I learned how to make adjustments. My first 3 years, we ran 3 totally different offenses. So I was able to experiment and figure out, different aspects of the game. And then we started to have success. In my last 2 years, we had really good success. And then from there, I went to Trinity University. Amy Bradley allowed me to come over there and be a volunteer. First day of practice as a volunteer, she pulls everybody together and tells them, hey, this is Coach Walker. He's going to be volunteering, and he's going to show y'all how to run a 1-2-1-1 press. And I was like, oh, okay. So I became the defensive coordinator there. And the next year I got the head job. The assistant left and went to Oklahoma. So then I was at Trinity University for 2 years. And then I was going to start coaching with Cameron Hill, Bob Hill's son, who's the head girls coach there now. And then I got a call from a coach from upstate New York, from Buffalo area, who told me that the coach at Binghamton was looking for a male assistant coach. And she recommended me. Ended up talking to the head coach at Binghamton University. Had a couple of phone interviews. They flew me out, interviewed me there, offered me a job. I took the job, packed up and moved to Binghamton to get some Division I experience. Was there a year. The head coach had 1 year left on her contract after that. My wife and son didn't come. Initially, they were going to come, and they decided to stay. My wife had a good job. Son was at a good school. And it didn't seem so bad in the beginning because I was back here, every couple of weeks, either recruiting or holidays. And so we decided, let's just wait till the summer. Well, by the time the summer came, I kind of knew that the head coach might not be coming back. So I resigned and moved back home. Ended up going over to St. Luke's Episcopal School. They called me out of the blue while I was trying to decide what I was going to do after Binghamton. Out of the blue, I get a phone call from St. Luke's Episcopal School. Now, my son is going to school there, but I don't know what made them think I was going to leave Division I to come to St. Luke's Episcopal School for pre-K3 through 8th grade. And the job title they offered me was be the pre-K3 through 2nd grade PE teacher. And I was like, huh? And they were like, yeah, but if you're interested, let us know. And my mentor at the time, Amy Bradley, was with me. We was actually at the WBCA conference, and she was at UT at this point. So I'm walking with her and the entire UT staff, and I look at her and I show the phone. I'm like, St. Luke's just offered me a job. And she immediately said, take it, with no hesitation. She said, take it. And I thought, she crazy? Like, later on, she told me why, and she had a really good reason for why. And I ended up taking that job, and they made me the athletic director the second year. So I think that was their plan all along, because the athletic director who hired me moved into administration. So I was there 3 years. Honestly, by December of that third year, one day, just in my quiet place, I was thinking, you know what, I like it here. I like the people. I like the kids. I think I might retire here. And then about 2 or 3 months later, I get a call from the head coach, the newly hired head coach at UIW. Hey, would you like to come over here? And I was like, well, sure. So I went to UIW. I was there for 3 years. And then she didn't get renewed, and was kind of out there in the wind, flapping in the wind again. And through a mutual friend, Alamo Heights, ended up giving me a call, and I'm at Alamo Heights now, going into my second year over there, back on the boys' side. So it's been quite the journey for me. I've loved every minute of it. Some of it was kind of, when you go to college life, you never know what the next year is going to be, just because, it's about winning and contracts and all that. So I did a lot. I moved around a lot. I feel like I got a lot of experience, a lot of viewpoints from different coaches and whatnot. And, and now I'm here.
Well, That is totally different than Mike's. You were absolutely correct on that.
I need a towel, man. I need a towel. I'm tired. Hey, I need a sub.
but like you said, I mean, that's also a great experience. I mean, both y'all had great experiences, but totally different. You know, you got an opportunity to work with so many different people and take what works best for you from all of them and apply it to what you're doing right now currently. So, I mean, whatever it takes, right? I mean, as long as you're learning and growing along the way, it's all that matters.
For sure.
Hey, I don't know if you're going to get into this, Marcus, or not about our hoops career. Are you going to get into that?
We can. Let's just do it right now. Talk about your hoops career, Mike.
What I was going to mention, Marvin, you said something, and I've always said this, and it's really hard to convey this to high school boys. But one of my best experiences is when I was at Tulsa. I was not recruited to play basketball. I moved on to more of an academic career, but always had the passion of basketball. And University of Tulsa is a D1, small D1. That was in the WAC conference at the time, and my roommates were all heavily recruited basketball players. And at the time, Tulsa didn't even have an arena. They would practice in the rec center. And so my buddies told me when they were practicing, and that was when Bill Self was there. And so I would go inside the rec center at 1 o'clock when they were having practice, and I worked my academic schedule around this so I can go hoop when they were hooping. But I'm on the opposite end. And Bill Self and his staff is over there practicing, and every once in a while they'd be like, "Hey, we need a dummy, we need a practice player." I knew what I was doing, and my roommates at the time were the ones who kind of helped me out with that. So I got to participate there. So then that led to the next year, Kathy McConnell Miller, who was the head women's coach at Tulsa at the time. She ended up putting together, golly guys, this is 95. This is the year 1995. And she puts together a men's practice squad. And, looking at now, you look at how many schools, how many universities have a men's practice squad. And I know I was, that's back in 1995. But if you, not 95, I'm getting way back. This was 99. I apologize. 99. I never heard of that. I never heard of a bunch of guys coming together to be on the women's team. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah. She's like, no, like you can play. And all these other guys that had been trying out, because I tried out. I tried to be a walk-on my freshman year and my sophomore year. And so she took about 7 of us that tried out for that year's team and put together a practice squad. And I'll never forget that. The opportunities that she extended to me, the relationships I was able to establish with Division I coaches, watching film. The 7 of us, the guys would go in and we would watch film while the girls were out stretching and getting loose and warmed up. And we would study film on the opponents. And then we would have to go in to the court, get loose or whatever and execute offense and defense. We got free gear. We got to sit right behind the bench. Those girls were amazing. They were a heck of athletes too. So going up against D1 girls, man, that's super competitive. And they ain't going to let nothing get past you, man. Those girls were feisty. They will fight. They're going to cross you up. They're going to take – and it's like, okay, all right. So it became this competition where I'm going to prove myself. Like I'm not backing down from nobody here. So fast forward now as a coach – where at our school, every year we have a practice squad. So we have like a G League, right? So we got about 7-8 guys that don't make the JV team. And so we put them on the practice squad. And man, what that's done for our program and developing these kids. And one of the greatest stories that I can ever tell is Keenan Gums. And I don't know if you know who Keenan Gums is, man, but this kid, and I trust me, I hope he watches this because this kid needs all the recognition that he can get because as a coach, the hardest day you have is the day you cut a kid. Mm-hmm. We hate that day, right?
Right.
But he was good enough to stay in our program, though. You could tell there was something there, and it wasn't my decision, but it was the coaching staff's decision on this kid. So we put him on the practice squad, and man, every day he would come to practice angry. I mean, just angry, and not to where it would affect his game negatively, to where it affected his game positively.
Yeah.
And he was pushing all those guys. In my opinion, to this day, and I'll still say it and I'll tell him in his face, he still was not ready, in my opinion. Now, as coaches, we have to realize when we're wrong, but I feel like we were right in the situation because it pushed him. But he chose not to wave the flag. He went to work every day. And so that kind of reminded me of, being on that women's practice squad where here he is, just like I was, fighting for that spot, but I wanted to be a walk-on the men's team.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes on, and he was one of the first players that we went to state in 2013, goes off to Shriner, and becomes a medical redshirt one year because of his knee. And I know he'll get on to me for probably messing up the story here, but then became, conference player of the year over at Shriner. Mm-hmm. Still had a year of eligibility, went on to Liberty University, D1, took him to the dance, and they were a 12-5 seed upset, I believe, in that first round. But it just reminds me about all the things that we do and participate in that leads up to our coaching careers, and that was an experience, Marvin, that you kind of reminded me of when you mentioned being the head girls coach was one of the best things that ever happened to you. I think being on the women's practice squad my sophomore year was one of the best experiences I had. That year, Tulsa ended up just getting short of the Final Four. We lost to North Carolina that year, but we were the Cinderella team that year. But the next year, man, I walked on at the University of Tulsa when Buzz Peterson was there, and I'm sure it helped being recognized by the coaching staff and the people that were there that I could hoop. But I always tell people that my experience as a high school athlete was nothing like a college athlete. I went from playing a lot of minutes to playing to hooping and scoring points and stuff to sitting the bench in the last seat and never getting in the game at all. And so as a coach now, those experiences for me allow me to coach from the first seat to the last seat. Mm-hmm. Because I know what it's like to start, and I know what it's like to ride the pine, and I know what it's like to not even be in a jersey. You know what I'm saying? So I think although I may not have the same coaching pedigree, I think those experiences that I had, have certainly shaped me as a basketball coach today.
It's funny, like I said, Pam Owens, I think was just a phenomenal coach. And it was funny because I had never coached girls. And to be honest, when I took the job at Taft, I thought to myself, man, I don't want to coach girls. Like, I'm going to go over here and take this job and just kind of get in the system. And then I'm getting over to the boys' side as quick as possible because girls they're not serious about hooping. Like, I hadn't seen it. But I remember the first day I went up to the school to meet coach. First of all, we probably sit in the office and talk for 3 hours. And the assistant athletic director was in the office, and he goes, yep, that was the right hire. Like, you two are going to get along just fine. So we had sitting there so long, school ended, whatever we was having that day, in services ended like at 3. And we had sitting there and talked so long just about hoops, probably pulling out scratch paper, drawing out plays and situations and whatever. And we had been there so long that she was like, oh, the girls are coming right now for open gym at 6. I'm like, it's 6? And she was like, yeah, come down here. Let's go meet the girls. Well, she opens the door, and there was a girl by the name of Ashley was standing like right in front of the door, and she's crossing the ball between her legs, behind her back, and just effortlessly just and then all of a sudden she just stopped, pops a 3. And I kind of look at coach, and I'm like, and she was like, she can go, coach. And she was like, and she can go. Her sister can go. And that girl right there, Natalie Gomez, she can go. And that girl right there, DeAndre Torres, she can go. And I'm just thinking like, okay, they started playing pickup ball. And I was like, damn, like girls, I mean, they were in there getting after it. And then as the season went on, being with Coach Owens, being around those girls, seeing how much they love the game and how, hey, they can get down too. But the thing that I was like, even as a high school, she had a boys practice squad. I had never heard of a practice squad. Here's a high school girls coach telling me she got a boys practice squad. So she had about 6 or 7 boys that she basically plucked out of her PE class that were pretty decent athletes, good kids, did the same thing, gave them gear, recognized them in the program and all that. And bar none, she's the best coach this is no disrespect to any of the other coaches I've worked for or worked under. By far, she's probably the best one, just as far as being innovative and being all in, and loving the game just as much as any guy I've ever been around. But I agree with you too, Mike. Like your experience is what makes you the coach you are. Sometimes that experience is playing experience. I'm like you. I didn't play college basketball. I came from Wichita Falls, Texas. I don't know if I say that, but I'm from Wichita Falls, Texas. In Wichita Falls, Texas, we didn't have AAU. We barely had summer ball, and so nobody came into Wichita Falls to recruit us. And the only schools I knew about were like North Carolina, Texas, Duke, Oklahoma. And I knew I could hoop, but I knew I wasn't North Carolina, Texas, Duke, Oklahoma. So I didn't know about a UIW or a St. Mary's or D3. I knew about none of that. So I was like, hey, Dean Smith didn't come to the gym to check me out, so I must not be good enough. So I just left it at that and went about my academic, career. And then once I got to UTSA, I actually tried out at Midwestern State, and the coach offered me a red shirt spot. I declined because I needed to work to help my mom. And if I was going to be not going to be able to play, then I might as well take that off. And I discussed it with coach, like, hey, here's my options. I can come here, be at every practice, or I can go get a job and help my mom pay some bills. And he told me, man, go help your mom pay some bills. Come back next year. I ended up transferring to UTSA, never played college ball. Played with a lot of college ball players, and there's people to this day who still think I played at UTSA, and I've never fabricated that or led anybody to believe that. But every time they walked into the gym, if the UTSA basketball team was playing pickup ball, I was in there with them. They were calling me to come hoop with them, and so there's people to this day. I get invited to the alumni events. They had an alumni event this past year. I got an invitation to the alumni event, and people there thought still that I played at UTSA. So, but all of those experiences made me the coach. And I think being on the girls' side did something for my coaching style that going over to the guys' side, I've never been like a big time, yeller, screamer. And I've had parents ask me, how are you so calm on the bench? And I think part of that was coaching girls, because I just felt like as a man, and I don't want to sound stereotypical, but I just felt like as a man, yelling at private school girls on top of girls, period, just wasn't I didn't feel like that was the proper way to approach them. And then as I grew, I was like, in my opinion, that's not the proper way to coach anybody. There's a time and place where, you yell to get your point across. But for the most part, I feel like I teach the game, and I don't do a lot of yelling and screaming. And I think part of that was my time on the girls' side. It just kind of developed me into that type of coach.
Coach Silverstein, too, at Clark, he talks about his time on the girls' side.
Yep.
And he talks about how that made a huge impact in his coaching and and the way he delivers a lot of his messages.
Coach Silverstein, when I was at UTSA, Coach Silverstein was at Jay. He was at John Jay, and he used to invite the UTSA basketball players to come up there to John Jay to play against his guys, and I was right there with him. So we used to go up there. Sometimes Coach Silverstein would throw in the shoes and come out there and get a few buckets too. But I've known Coach Silverstein from way back then, and he's one of the coaches around the city that I really admire and respect, the way he coaches and the way he approaches the game.
Who are some other coaches that you guys, both of you guys, that look up to in that regard?
Man, I would have to say for me, I've thought about this because I anticipated you asking that question since you've asked it before. And the way I think about it, man, is maybe not the way everybody thinks about it. To me, this is my honest answer here. I can't say that I've had a very influential person. I can say, man, it was this person. This person is a person who shaped me, this and that, whatever. But I'll say this. Every person that has ever coached me has a role in who I am today as a coach. And that's from growing up as a little kid to those to those coaches that were coaching me because they knew they needed to reach me because I was a kid growing up in a single parent home. That you don't think about it back then because you're a kid, you're just in the present. But now as an adult and as a coach, I can look back and say, man, look at all of these people that have coached me in my life, that has shaped me, and how they have influenced me and the things that I do and that I say and how I act and my demeanor and my faith. So I'd have to answer this by saying every coach who has ever coached me has had the most influence in my life, but I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now. But now that I am a coach, man, it's hard not to say that, coaching with Coach Hubbard, the dude's like a saint, man. His walk in faith, and that's one of the things that we do. I started a coach's Bible study at Steele about 5 or 6 years ago through Coaches Outreach. And Lonnie's been right there with me every step of the way, and he's been a part of that group. But, in 15 years, man, you think about 15 years, man, like 15 more years, I might be able to retire. So I've spent potentially half of my career with one guy who's as incredible as he is, has a big impact for when the day comes and I'm a head coach for the first time. A lot of what I have seen, a lot of what I've heard, his actions, his demeanor, his relationships with kids and parents and administration is going to go a long way when I'm a coach. But some people that I think influence me, one of the people that I like to mention is Charlie Bogus, because as a young, stupid coach, I thought I had to be loud and vocal and vibrant and colorful on the sidelines, and part of that's the competitiveness in me. But then I would watch Charlie Bogus coach, and I'm very observant. I love watching people and how they coach. And this guy is sitting on the bench in his chair with his legs crossed and his arms folded. Guys like Popovich, I don't get it. I don't know how they do it, but they coach so quietly, man. But when they speak up and they've got something to say, watch how the players react to that coach's, whatever he's trying to get his kids to do. He's had an influence on me. I hope he listens so he understands that, because, that taught me a lot early in my coaching career. But some college coaches, Shaka Smart, when he was even at VCU, and I saw them YouTube videos of him going out there and doing all the military style workouts with his players out in the trenches. Man, that taught me a lot, because I'm an avid exerciser. I love doing Spartan races and that kind of stuff. And so it got my wheels turning. And so now at Steele, we do some of that kind of stuff in the preseason. Matter of fact, our first Saturday practice of the year, we're not in the gym. We're out doing stuff like that at a place out here in the New Braunfels and Bulverde area, that military style training. So that really helped me. But one coach right now that is influencing me, being able to go to some of his coaching clinics and listening to him talk, and is Buzz Williams out of A&M.
Oh yeah.
That guy and his walk and his attention to detail, everything he does is intentional. That challenges me as a coach, even as an assistant coach, because, if you're not doing something intentional, then why are you doing it? You're just throwing in a drill that day, just throwing a drill, or this offense or that defense. He's so intentional, and I highly recommend, if you ever get a chance to go one of his coaching clinics that he does, you're going to see how intentional that guy is with the time that he wakes up, how many books he's reading, the quotes that he has on his calendars. I mean, it's bizarre. But anyway, Marvin, you go ahead, man.
For me, like you said, I'm a keen observer of people's. Two things I observe is the way, coaches kind of carry themselves in their everyday life. If I'm able to see that, but just the way they interact with their kids on the bench, the respect, you can see the respect, how their kids react to them, and whether you can see how much a coach cares, how much they love their kids by the way their kids respond to them and for them. And that's always been something big for me, like relationships. So the coaches who I've really, looked up to in that aspect from early on, Dean Smith is my guy. Like if I wasn't doing a book report on Isaiah Thomas, who's my all-time favorite player, then it was going to be Dean Smith. It was one of the two. If my teachers ever got together over my 4 or 5 years of from middle school to high school, they'd have been like, hold up, every other year he wrote about Isaiah Thomas, and that other year he wrote about Dean Smith, and he pretty much handed the same paper in every time. But Dean Smith was like, I just love the way he carried himself on the sideline. Like you said, Mike, when he yelled and screamed, they listened because he didn't do it a lot. And then Pat Summitt was also somebody I looked up to. And I tell you what really gained so much respect. I gained so much respect with Pat Summitt. I went to a clinic in Fort Lauderdale. And it was the Boston Clinic. So it was Pat Summitt, Bruce Pearl, and Bobby Knight were there. And so, like I said, Pam Owens got to know Pat Summitt really well because she went to her basketball camp like every year for like 17, 18, 20 years and worked the camp. And ultimately, that's how she got the invitation to come do a grad assistantship when she was like 40, 41, and she still went and did it. So we went to this, and we used to go to clinics together. So we went to this clinic, and after the clinic, of course, we go up to, Pam to say hi to Pat, and they hug and talk a little bit. Pam introduces me to Pat, and Pat looks me straight in the eyes and goes, "What did you think?" And I went, "About what?" And she said, "About my presentation. Did I do good? Did I do good stuff?" And I'm looking at her like, "Pat Summitt, you could have stood up there and stared at us for an hour, and we'd have took notes on your stare." Like and, I mean, and so I was just like, she's so humble to ask me at the time, a freshman girls basketball coach at San Antonio Taft High School, what I thought about her presentation, and she did do good stuff. And that's what made her, who she was. Like she didn't come up there and tell us about all the championships she won and all the WNBA players and, national, championship in America, that she didn't tell us all her credentials. We all knew that anyway. She got up and spoke for about 2 minutes, and then she started doing drills for an hour and a half. And they were all drills that I wrote in my notebook. And to this day, I run some of those drills, or I run some of my presses or whatever it may be based off the numbers, like her press, like she called 21. And if we were in her full court press and they scored a layup and she yelled 21, whoever scored the layup, you immediately press the ball out of bounds and everybody else filled in. So I started running 21 based on how she taught it. But just the fact of who she was to ask little old me, like, what do you think? And then as far as high school, like I said, Pam Owens, Cliff Ellis was somebody that I played a lot of ball with at UTSA when he would come back home. We played a lot of pickup ball, played in, in some summer leagues or whatever. And then to get to watch him as a coach. And if you ever got to play pickup ball with Cliff, his demeanor on the court is exactly his demeanor on the sideline. It's the exact same, like never gets rattled.
Yeah.
And watching him coach, he's the same way. So I've always, respected the way he goes about his business as a coach and just as a person. Like he's a great person. So he's somebody who I kind of, look up to. And it's funny to say that because I might be older than him, but to look up to Cliff, as a coach. There's a few others. Right now being with Coach Brewer, one of the things about Coach Brewer is you can tell that, like, it's like he never has a bad day. Really, like every day he comes in and he can tell you it was the worst day he's had in his entire life, but he's still smiling.
Yeah.
And he's still smiling.
Yeah.
And he might say, "Man, today was terrible." But guess what, Coach Walker? We're in the gym. And that's gonna make it all better. and we go from there. Like, but so just kind of being, in his program right now, and just kind of seeing how much he loves it, how much he loves the kids, and and everything about it. A parent might rip into him on an email or a text, and he don't get it. Like, he don't even, like, he'll mention it, and he might say, kind of his thoughts on it, and then it's done. Where some coaches will let that, influence the practice or whatever. So those are probably the guys that I, look up. And then having Coach Moore on our staff, Herb Moore, who's, coached forever, Coach Shaq. A lot of times we'd be on the bus and me and him might be sitting next to each other, and it reminded me of when I was a Pam. We're going back and forth on, this wrinkle or that wrinkle, or how about this play, coach? Or what you think about when we play tonight, if we kind of look at this off of this and put him in this position? I'm like, Coach, I was thinking the same thing, but what if we did this and what if we did that? Oh, yeah, I did that 2 years ago. And, it's just kind of back and forth. So having all that knowledge, in one room is fun to be around as well.
All great influences. Everyone that both of you guys named. And what I've learned is a lot of those guys that you named, we all know, but most of the coaches are willing to give to other coaches. You need help. What do you need? I got you. And so that's the beautiful thing about our profession and what we do. I've never had a coach that I've ever asked for advice or help. I've never had them say, nah, go ask somebody else, right? Everybody's so willing to help, and that's awesome, really awesome.
And Marcus, I'm going to add real quick. I'll keep it short, but being a walk-on has been something that shaped me as a basketball player and as a coach. And I can't forget to mention Coach Phillips and Coach Peterson when they were at Tulsa after Bill Self left. Getting that phone call from an assistant coach, and you go back and you think about the things that have happened in your life. Walking home after tryouts, I think it was like the second day of tryouts or something like that, and my phone rings, and it's the assistant coach, Coach Phillips, giving me a call. He's like, "Hey, can you be at practice tomorrow morning?" That's all. I mean, I remember it. I picked up the phone, and that's what he said. "Can you be at practice tomorrow morning?" And so I'm talking. I'm like, "Wait a minute. So did I make the team?" He's like, "Can you be at practice tomorrow morning? We need you to come pick up your uniform." And I lived about a mile off campus, and I didn't have a car, so I just got done tryouts, walking home, just kind of playing back the tryouts in my head. He's like, "You think you can come by and pick up your uniform?" You know exactly what I did. I turned around and I sprinted, man. And but I'll never forget that because as a coach now that has a practice squad, the emotions that I felt when a coach gave me a chance is the same pride that I have when I'm able to tell a kid yes. Yeah. And so I can carry that. So I can't do that without saying that they had a part in my life and giving me that opportunity. And that year we won the NIT championship against Alabama. And that's an experience that you can't take away from me. And those two coaches gave me that opportunity. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I was going to say, I would have took off running. Sounds like you did.
Right.
So.
Oh, I sprinted.
Like, he wouldn't even got the phone yet. He'd have been like, "What? Was you in the hallway?" "Hey, Coach, I'm right here. You
knocking on the door.
Put your phone down. I'm right here."
Yep.
The last thing I wanted to say is that, I look back as an assistant coach, and when I was a head coach, I tried to do the same thing for my assistant. But as an assistant coach, I've been blessed in the places that I've been, the places that, I believe my journey, God had his hand on every part of that. There's no doubt. But everywhere I went, for my first assistant coaching job for my, in Florida, and I remember we was in a playoff game and playing a team that we were supposed to lose to in the first round. This is my first year coaching. And we're up 4, I believe. And I look at the head coach and I said, "Let's get in a 3-2. It's about 5 seconds left." Matter of fact, no, we were up 3. And it's about 5 seconds left, and they called a timeout. We hadn't ran zone all year. And I look at coach, and I said, "Let's run a 3-2. And he looks at me. I was shocked that he didn't know what a 3-2 was. But he had enough confidence and faith in me that when the timeout, he gave me the clipboard and told me, "Put him in it." And we drew up a 3-2. The kids went out and got in the 3-2. The other coach didn't know what to do, and his kid, basically, they stared at each other. And the kid just bounced the ball for about 3 or 4 of those seconds and then launched the ball from maybe 2 feet in front of half court. But to think back on that and go, we're in a playoff game. This coach had been coaching for like 20 years. Like he wasn't, I was shocked that he didn't know what 3-2 was. Yeah. He truly did not know. But the fact that he had the faith in me to come up, put a defense on the board that he didn't even know what it was. I could have been coming up with some BS. And he was like, here you go. And we won the game. And to think that that coach had that kind of confidence in me and allowed me to really be a part of that team. And then fast forward to coaching with Pam Owens. Again, we're in a game, and Pam knew more basketball than probably some of us can forget, especially at that point. I mean, this lady kept, like, when she passed, her husband invited me to the house to pick up stuff, and she literally had a room that had everything you could think of, every camp she had ever been to, every basketball she had ever had signed, every video, it was like just like a hall of fame of stuff. But anyway, we're in the middle of a game, and we're up 2 points, 3 points, or 7 points, things like 7 points. And she calls a timeout, and she looks at me and goes, Marvin, you gotta play for this situation? And I go, yes. I had nothing, but I came up with something. I drew up a inbound play length of the court. First girl in line turns and takes off running and wide open and shoots a layup. And she turns around and gives me the biggest high five in front of everybody in the gym. And I thought, wow, again, she had a play. She didn't have to act. Like, the difference was the guy in Florida didn't know what a 3-2 was. She had like probably 30 plays she could have ran, and she just gave me an opportunity. So I was, so I've been blessed to be places where coaches allowed me to be a part. It wasn't just carrying the clipboard or, being the practice dummy or whatever. Like, they allowed me to grow with them as a coach. A couple of more coaches that I left off, I want to say real quick, was Tina Camacho and Treva. Both of them, I've watched them because when I was at Taft, Tina was the head coach at Holmes High School. I believe Treva was on our staff. Yep. So I've known them since 2004. I've known them, and to watch them and to get to sit in on some of their practices and see the success they've had, those are two more that I respect a lot.
Now, I don't really know Treva, but I did an episode with her a few days ago, and so to get to know her a little bit through that, she's a pretty amazing person, definitely.
She is, yeah, for sure.
And no, you're right though. It's important that head coaches empower their assistants, especially if those assistants aspire to be head coaches themselves. And so, I try to do the same thing with my guys. My assistant just got a head coaching job, so he just moved away, his first head coaching job, and I know he's going to do good things. And I try to do my best while he was with me for those few years to give him big roles. Even up until this last season, same thing. Hey, there's 4 seconds left. We're at Harlandale down 1. Hey,
yep.
You got something or not? Draw it up. Get in the huddle, draw it up. And he did, and we ended up getting a shot. We got fouled. Go to the free throw line, win the game with 0.5 seconds left. It's just, but give them that sense of empowerment. You're a part of this team, and put them in the fire.
Right. One time, Pam, she told me, hey, practice next week on Tuesday. You got practice. And I was like, yeah, I'll be here. I'm always here. She's like, no. You got practice. I'm going to be your assistant that day. So you come up with your own practice plan. Whatever you want to do, you ain't got to do what I've done. Come up with your own practice plan, and I'm going to be your assistant that day, and you tell me what you need me to do. And that was, another, great opportunity that she empowered me to get my feet wet.
That's wonderful to hear for both of you guys. NBA's back. You guys excited? Y'all been watching?
Man, I don't usually watch the NBA, but man, I'm gonna be watching a lot of NBA basketball.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch yet, but I'm gonna definitely be watching. I can't wait to I watch pickleball if they put it on TV. I'm so excited for some sports. So I'll definitely be watching. I usually don't watch a whole lot of NBA. I like college a little bit more. Yep. Unless there's certain guys playing NBA, but I'm definitely gonna be watching.
Impactful moments in your career that make you realize what we do is much deeper than just coaching the game of basketball. It doesn't have to be a specific example, or it can be. It's up to you guys. It can be pretty general or not, but a moment that kind of reminds us that what we do goes much deeper than coaching how to win games and how to play ball.
I had at St. Mary's Hall, I had a girl, and she was probably the first kid who really trusted me as a coach. I got to work with her as an eighth grader because I was in private school, so I got to work with her as an eighth grader. Then ninth grade year, I got her, um, you know, and she was probably the first, like I said, player to really buy into Coach Walker and what he's doing, right? So, and she lived around the corner from the gym, so that was quite a few times that after practice, we want to go to Dallas route. After practice, she stick around. I work with her on her shot or whatever. And, kind of the joke became she was my basketball daughter. That's kind of the joke. And even their family would say in our household, it's coach, it's mom, dad, and then what would Coach Walker do? What would Coach Walker say? So we had this relationship, that was really tight. I was tight with a lot of my kids, but I remember probably the most impactful moment going into her junior year before the season starts. She comes up to me, and I mean, this girl loved it just as much as I did. And she said, "Coach, I think I'm gonna quit basketball." And my heart dropped, like it literally dropped. And I went, "Why?" And she said, "I love the game, but the game don't love me." And I said, it sounds so poetic, but so like, I was like, what? And she said, I put in all these hours and hours of practice and, workouts and, shooting with you and this and that. And I mean, she was just, and it just doesn't seem to be showing up on the court. And I told her, I said, look, I don't know how all this is going to play out. Are you going to get a scholarship to college? Are you going to get all that? What kind of success you're going to have on the court? But I can tell you that the hard work and everything you're putting into it, it's going to translate to life. Mm-hmm. It's going to, you're picking up some values that's going to make you a better person. And I said, another thing is you never know when that breakthrough is going to come. So you're not quitting basketball. I thought she was going to tell me like she had a medical condition or something that she had no control over, but her doubt was not going to be the reason. So I said, so we'll see you at practice tomorrow. And she just kind of looked at me and said, okay. So she comes to practice. She keeps working hard or whatever. So we go to play in a tournament over at over in Bulverde, a little private school in Bulverde. And so, and this is my fourth year, which is her third year, going into her junior year. And we played, and we were clicking. By then, we were clicking because that her sophomore year, we ran a system, and we kept that system the next year. So we were clicking. So we ended up winning the game, whatever. And afterwards, the coach from Concordia Lutheran comes up to me and go, "Hey, coach," introduced himself and said, "Great team you got there. And he, tell me a little bit about number 21 and number one. Number one was a freshman by nature. Like she could palm the ball, she could dribble between her legs, she could do things as a freshman that was D1 level. So everybody always noticed her. And number 21 was this other kid. And he said, well, I would love to talk to them both, blah, 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 and give him cards. So I go up to her afterwards, we about to get on the bus to go get something to eat. And I said, hey, come here. And she comes over and she had these big blue eyes, and they were like, hey, coach, like she's smiling because we won. Her eyes are real big. And I go, hey, you remember when you told me you love the game, but the game don't love you? And she kind of looked at me like, yeah. And I handed her the card from this college coach, and she looks at it, and she looks back up at me, and she goes, no way. And I go, wait. And she's like, this is the college coach? And, like, she literally, like, both of our eyes, like, welled up with tears because she realized, and she had 32 points that game. So she went from the year before averaging about 5 or 6. But the thing is, she always believed in me. If I told her to go climb a wall, it wasn't why, it was which wall. There's 4 of them. Which one do you want me to climb? Yeah. And that was kind of her mentality with me. And it ended up paying off. But the fact that I got to see that success, and like I told her, I may not see it until you're an adult. Maybe you're a parent or whatever, but you're going to have some success. She ended up going to play at Colorado College. But for me, that's what it was all about. Seeing a kid work her tail off, do everything the right way, and then see some reward for her efforts. And that's why I coach. That's why, those moments is what I love to see and love to be a part of.
What about you, Mike?
That's good stuff, man. Marvin, you said the word success, and I think that has a lot to do with what we do, even in the classroom. You have to, number one, define success. What is success as a teacher? What is success as a coach? And I don't know, it's just me. I would think that a lot of people would not have a definition of success as a test score in the classroom or a championship ring. I mean, don't get me wrong. We would all love to win state, but there's only one team that happens to, right? So if you ask people what their definition of success is, and I think that's where you're going to find those stories like you just shared, Marvin, that when you reach a kid, those connections that you make, the relationships that outlast the time that they're at your school, the thank yous that you get, the emails that you get, the parents that end up saying thank you when they graduate, thank you for all you've done for my son. I think those are those pivotal moments as a coach when you realize you're where you're supposed to be, and that's our God-given talent, is to be able to coach these kids and mentor these young men.
That gas station.
But for me, man, there's a couple of stories that stand out to me, and they're both pretty dark, man. We had two tragedies back-to-back years with two of our athletes. One, we had high hopes for this kid, Jay Hill. Was just talented, was athletic, could jump out of the gym, was just shocking everybody with what he was doing in his sophomore year. And shortly thereafter, he ended up leaving. He ended up leaving and going to Florida and transferring out of nowhere to go stay with maybe grandparents or somebody else. I can't really remember. And within a week or so, he was killed in a car crash. Just the environment with the kids, the not understanding, having to talk to your athletes, about a guy that you have brotherhood with. Those conversations had nothing to do with basketball. Mm-hmm. They had to do with life and the end of life and Christ. And when you're able to do that, you're reaching a kid on another level. This ain't about basketball anymore. This is about teaching a young man that you cherish the day that's given to you. And you wake up in the morning and you think, thank you, Jesus, for this day. Thank you for the breath that I have. And then the next year, man, we had another athlete, another player that was on our first state team, Justin Gage, was shot and killed, San Marcos. Crazy enough, they were both number 4. So just everything that encompassed and those opportunities to talk about things other than basketball, which that's what we do. Those impactful moments that we have with kids usually are stuff about other things other than basketball. So those were pretty impactful for me. But going back to that kid, Keenan, I'll never forget this. And I don't know that I've ever shared this with him. So again, I hope he hears it, but we're at a Kerrville Tybee tournament. And I'm holding the door open for all the guys as they're going into Cece's Pizza. And he just looks me in the eyes and says, Coach, why don't you ever cuss? I was like, where did that question come from, right? So clearly this kid had been thinking about this. Clearly this kid has picked up on that, right? Like he's got to be intuitive enough to know that, hey, this is kind of different, right? Most coaches do this. You don't. And so that allowed me an opportunity to kind of get a little personal with him about some scripture, Ephesians 4:29. And I've tried to live by that since 2005. But those impactful moments for me are any time that I get to have a conversation with kids on a deeper level that does not have to do with basketball.
Mm-hmm. Those are powerful moments, Coach, for sure. Before we call this one a day, going back to, you brought up, the climate of race in our country. What are some things that our society could learn from the locker room of an athletic program? Because, in athletics, you get people from all walks of life, all different races, everything, and able to build that family environment, So what are your thoughts on that?
Man, I'll tell you this, and I don't know if it's a hard one, and these are all tough conversations as I'm learning about race. Is is that uncomfortable conversation that we have to have. And I'll try not to be long-winded here, but I think, and this is a very simplistic answer, I think it all comes down to love. And that's the answer. The answer is when you have a team and you have a brotherhood and you're able to give an athlete a hug at the end of a game, maybe because he missed the last shot, you're teaching them that it's okay, but I still love you, right? In spite of the fact that you missed that shot or a free throw, or maybe it's celebratory after the game because he hit the winning shot. That same hug is just as impactful to show a young man that we truly care about him. You know, I said it earlier, you've got to be able to coach from the first seat to the last seat. And I say this a lot with some professional development that I do with teachers. If you want to know if you're a good teacher, ask your worst student. You know, in the game of basketball, if you want to know if you're a good coach, ask your worst athlete on your team. Because what he says or what she says, and you listen to it and you can take what their answer is, that's the opportunity for you to grow as a coach. But I think a lot of people are fearful of asking that question because of what they're about to hear. So for me, when you show love to that starting five, you've got to show that same love to the guy that doesn't get the playing time. Yeah. So that when the opportunity comes, when we need to talk about race, it ain't just talking about race. They already know Coach Herrera and the way he thinks, what his values are. And I think just going back to my Christian values, if we can show more love to people and show Christ through our actions and our words, kids see that. Kids, kids are kids, they're teenagers, man, and they're going to make mistakes and they're going to party and they're going to have fun and they're going to do this and that in college. But guess what? They're going to grow up and be young men. And they're going to be like you and I. And the things that we do and the things that we say and the actions that we do, even when no one's looking, our kids are watching. You know, they're keeping a little mental journal of the things that we do. And that's my definition of success, is that when they later on in life come back and they tell me the impact that I had on their life, just like we've talked about today, how other people's have impacted our lives, it's going to come full circle, man. But I just feel like in the racial climate right now, there's a lot of political debates, right? There's people on both sides. There's people that don't educate themselves but just speak freely because they're so opinionated on something that they haven't looked up. And we could probably write a book on all the things that people think about racism. But I think there's one commonality, in my opinion, is that we just need to show more love to people. And I know that's a very simplistic thing, but that's my Christ-centered value in me, in my upbringing, is just to embody that, to embody love. And if we can do that with our athletes, you know, I'm hoping that when you plant that seed, it spreads like a wildfire. Marvin, you're on mute. There you go.
On mute, Marv.
My bad. I was giving my son some directions over here. Yeah, I agree. Love is the foundation for, you know, along with respect. Just respect people for who they are. There was a time in my career, and there's still some times, to be honest with you, I ask myself, why am I where I'm at? Most of my career has been, especially, I've spent a lot of time in the Alamo Heights community, if you will, whether it was at Alamo Heights, whether it was at UIW, whether it was at St. Luke's Episcopal School, all in the 09. And then I was at St. Mary's Hall, where a lot of those kids come from Alamo Heights. So I remember one time asking myself, why, as a Black man, why am I here? Why am I here? There's not a lot of color here. There's, honestly, there's probably some schools, on the east side or west side or somewhere where there's a lot more kids who look like me, who I can mentor and share my story of how, I was in some situations just as bad as you guys are, and I made it out, and share my story and be like an example of what you can do if you put your mind to it. So there's been those times, but then one day, I guess God kind of opened my eyes to a different view of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And the decision I came up with is that I'm in this community. I'm in this community to show this community that, these young kids, pre-K3, first graders, second graders, ninth graders, high schoolers, that Black men are more than just entertainers or NBA players and things like that, or, whatever other view they may have had that might not have been being a teacher or being a lawyer or a doctor or having those real relationships. So I decided that my role is maybe to show these kids a different view of who a Black man is and love them unconditionally and earn that same love back from them. So when they left and maybe, somebody, I saw a question the other day on Facebook, and it said, and it was in a Black Lives Matter page. And the question was, how old were you when you had your first Black male teacher? And the answer, and y'all are probably thinking about it now if you ever had one or not, but the answer for most people was either I never had one, or maybe I had one in college, or I had one in PE, but I thought that was a very profound question. And for me, I thought, how many of my kids am I the answer to that? And then how many of those kids, not only am I the answer, but maybe I'm the reason they're not afraid maybe when they encounter a Black man, in their neighborhood, or if they pass one in the grocery store or pull up beside one at the red light, maybe they have a different experience with who that person is. So for me, I think my journey has taken me where it's taken me. And I think I'm just now fully embracing that with the book club. A lot of times I'm the main voice in there because it's only about 4 or 5 of us, Black people in there, and not that they're necessarily looking to me to be the answer, but they do know that I'm living an experience that they haven't lived, and they kind of want to know a little bit, and they want to hear my stories or my viewpoint of everything that's going on, or when they're sharing their information, about their walk through, life, whatever, just hearing me. And I've had multiple people tell me that they appreciate my voice in there, because there's things that I've said that they've heard, that, I'll give you an example. The Confederate flag, we kind of talked about that. And I mentioned, me and another Black guy, and then we talked about how that makes us feel to see it. And one of the people said, thank you for sharing that. Like, I never knew that. I never knew that, provoked some type of feeling in you. I knew that she knew that it wasn't a great symbol for Black people, but she never really understood why, or never knew why, or maybe never even thought about why. So for me, being where I'm at right now, I think I'm starting to embrace that. I'm actually I was asked to do a professional development next in 2 weeks with our staff. And I think all of this is kind of sparked from the book club and just, being open to talking about these things. So right now, I think I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And I know there's a lot of other places I could be in the midst of this Black Lives Matter. But I think I'm in a good place to make a change and maybe change the opinion or viewpoint, in the center of the city where there's not a lot of people of color.
And I'll piggyback on that, Marvin. I'm doing professional development on our campus as well. But I'll tell you what, you presented a really good question, and I'll just go ahead and say it. My answer is 0. I never really thought about that before, but to mention you, though, you mentioned you're the answer potentially to a lot of these kids, right? You very well might be the only answer that these kids ever have. and I don't know you personally, but I feel like I know you much better now, right? I mean, I've known of you and I know your face, right? But the dialogue we're having right now, but what better answer than to have you be that person that they experience, so that's just an amazing perspective when you think about it. And I really I'm very glad and blessed to know that you are potentially the one that these kids get to know and get to experience on a completely different level. So that's awesome, man. And thanks for sharing that too.
Yeah, I take a lot of pride in it too. And it's not that I take pride in being that person. I just take pride in what I do in the classroom. And then to hear that question the other day and to think that maybe I am the one, and then to think back on my career and think, am I proud to be the one? Like, have I represented well? And I feel like I have. I feel like everything I've done, I've never treated anybody a certain way because of how they look, how they dress, their sexual orientation, or any of that. I've always treated people with respect. I tell you, a eye-opening moment this year. I'm standing in Alamo Heights, and it's the first day of school, and this Black kid turns the corner, and she see me standing there, and she goes, and she kind of goes, "I got a Black teacher?" And I jokingly looked at her and go, "I'm Black?" And she gave me this look like, "Oh," and I was like, "No, I'm just playing." And so we dapped up and all that, and then she walked away. She was bobbing her head like it's gonna be a good year. Like, she was so hyped that she had a Black teacher, and we had a great experience. It was a few times during the year she'd come to me and talk to me about stuff. But those kind of moments, and and the next kid too, I had another kid who was a big time Trump supporter. Everybody knew it. This is not political or anything like that, but everybody knew it. And me and him were like this. I'm not a Trump supporter, just putting that out there. We ain't going no further than that. But we were like this. This kid was one of my favorite kids, and he'd come to school with the Make America Great, like at least once a week. He had the Make America Great hat on and a Trump for President shirt on at least once a week. And the very first time he wore it, he came up to me and he was kind of giving me this look as if to see if I was going to have some kind of adverse reaction to him doing that. And I was like, "What's up, man?" And he was like, "What's up, coach?" I like, "Nothing, man. What's going on? You watch the game? Or you watch the game, whatever?" He's like, "Yeah, coach. Like, Pat Mahomes, we just kind of got in that conversation." And like, he became one of my favorite students because even though we may have been sitting on different seats, it didn't matter to neither one of us. And that relationship was special because who knows how that could have went. If I wore my heart on my sleeve and he wore his on his sleeve, that could have been a toxic relationship and it ended up being a very good relationship. And that's just kind of how I approach teaching. That's how I approach coaching. There's no agenda. Like, my only agenda is to get to know you, get to love on you, get to teach you, and build a relationship with you. And I think that if people can approach life that way, regardless of who they encounter, then you're gonna, embark upon some great relationships. And if you choose not to approach life that way, then you're gonna miss out on some great relationships.
Absolutely. I think I always try to be empathetic, compassionate, and respectful. And like you said, Mike, just having a life full of love for whoever, and I've told plenty of people, we don't have to agree on everything. I don't have to agree with your beliefs, and you don't have to agree with mine, but I'm going to respect you the same, and we can still be cordial and be friendly, and get to know each other and get to know more about each other. We don't have to hate each other just off of that alone, right? And so I think what you say, right, Marv, is pretty powerful. Both of you guys. Well, I do appreciate your time. I know we talked for a little bit. It's been almost an hour and a half, but I hope we made your drive to Dallas a little easier there, Marv.
I was just about to say, my son's probably thinking like, "Man, I wish he'd get off the phone so we can stop and get something to eat or something." I told him.
Hey, that drive to Dallas isn't fun though. It's not a long drive, but it's not a short drive. I hate that drive to Dallas.
It sure is better when you got somebody to help you do it though.
Yeah.
Hey, and I just drove back from Oklahoma yesterday. We literally took a day trip to Oklahoma and back.
Oh, wow. I know you said you're at your uncle's place. I didn't know it was in Oklahoma. Man.
Yeah, I'm from Wichita Falls, so that's I'm a Sooner fan because of growing up right there on that Oklahoma border. So I grew up, watching the Sooners. But yeah, I'm taking that trip too.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. You gave some beautiful perspective on a lot of different things, and so thank you very much. And I wish you guys the best moving forward.
Likewise, thank you, Marcus.
Yes, thank you, Marcus, for this platform you're giving coaches. I've seen some of the podcasts, and we appreciate it. We appreciate the what you're doing, the platform that you're giving coaches the opportunity to kind of share some stories and some journeys. So thanks a lot for the invitation.
Yes, sir. Y'all be safe, stay healthy, and let me know if you guys need any help down the road.
Sounds good, Mike. It was good chopping it up with you.
Likewise, man. Take care. Be safe.
All right,
y'all are going to be Facebook friends here pretty soon.
Yeah, probably like in the next 10 minutes or so.
All right, fellas. We'll talk soon.
All right, later.
All right.
Bye.
Later.